So excited today. We're talking about teaching versus mentoring. I'm super excited about this because teaching is on one level and then there's mentoring. And the difference in results is lifelong learners and leaders. We're always talking about raising lifelong learners and leaders. We're talking about lifetime results in homeschooling, not just getting them a transcript so they can go to college. Yes, that's great. But we're also talking about further down the road when these kids are adults. What kind of person are we raising? I'm always talking about that. And so, what I want to talk about today is the difference between mentoring versus teaching. And are you actually a mentor to your kids or are you a teacher? Because if we want to raise lifelong learners and leaders, then it requires mentoring. It requires us to be great mentors. And lifelong learners and leaders all over throughout history, especially great leaders, have had great mentors. Lots of different mentors, not just their parents necessarily. Maybe some of them it wasn't even their parents, it was somebody else. But we are homeschoolers. And so by default, we are our kids' first and foremost mentors. And so we want to think about we're their teachers for sure. And we have the choice to be a mentor. So we can either choose to use it that way or we can choose to teach. Now, I can tell you that teaching by itself is essential. It's part of the mentorship umbrella. It is essential for teaching to occur. However, teaching by itself will not result in lifelong learners and leaders. Here's what I mean. So I spent a lot of years as a high school English teacher, and my husband still teaches. So I am well versed at what happens in school and how it happens. And I talk to you guys and you parents all the time about this. So I know what's happening in the schools and how textbooks and how standards are developed and how we determine all of these shoulds, these educational shoulds, right? I understand the concepts of teaching, the premise of teaching, the success principles of teaching. I understand teaching inside and out. I am a teacher for sure. I do consider myself a teacher. And so when we think about teaching in a traditional sense, teaching is a lot of limitations. There's greatness in teaching, we need it for sure, but there are limitations. And we want to make sure that we are definitely looking at a higher level, not just teaching, but mentoring when we're looking at developing lifelong learners and leaders. Because teaching, how does it occur? It occurs in textbooks. It occurs in our just ourselves and us teaching skills and concepts and teaching information, right? Those are the things. When we're teaching, that's what we're doing. We're teaching skills and information mostly, right? So it occurs in textbooks, it occurs in classes, it occurs in us teaching, videos and documentaries, things like that. That's basic teaching. Yes, it is important. Not necessarily always how it looks in those specific areas, the textbooks, the classes, the regular just rote teaching. That's not where lifelong learning and leadership happens. That is where box checking happens, though. And that's what our default is. When we're looking to homeschool our kids, we're thinking, I'm not a teacher. I have to be my kid's teacher. I'm my kid's teacher. All of this we're thinking about, but really, or we have to find teachers for our kids. And whether it be through print media or video or online or textbooks and other workbooks, That's all what we think about when we think of teaching. And that's informational and skill building. It's textbooks. Style is that traditional style. And that's what we all think of. And so, what happens with that, though, is we have a lot of box checking, number one. And we know that box checking lowers love of learning if we're just going through the motions, right? Because teaching in that way tells kids what to learn. This is big, you guys. This is big. I hope you're listening right now. This is big. It tells kids what to learn, when to learn, how to learn it, and how much of it we're going to learn. Do you see how that happens? It's telling them, okay, we're going to learn about this much of this topic, and here's the way that we're going to learn it, and here's what we're going to learn about it. Don't think about going outside of that because we got to move on. We got the next lesson to do, we got the next chapter to do, we got the next page to do. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a lot of box checking. And what we know about box checking is that when we're just out to check boxes, we're not inspiring love of learning. So it actually decreases love of learning because it never stays the same. It's either increasing or it's decreasing. So box checking makes us lower love of learning. I talk about that all the time. And so it is a part of education, but it is very limited. Okay. And you know what else it's limited to? It's limited to the students' own goals. And that's a big key. That's a big key because that's what mentoring includes. So mentoring is at a higher level. Mentoring matters. If we're thinking about raising lifelong learners and leaders, mentoring matters. And mentoring takes teaching. We need to teach stuff. We need to learn stuff, right? Information, skills, that's all important. But mentoring is really about how do I take this and include my child's goals? My child's goals for themselves. If we want kids to own their own education, we have to take into account the child's goals as well. Now, if we're talking to a 5-year-old, we're not they don't know. It's okay. They don't know. Mentoring is for having discussions when they can start to understand that kind of stuff, okay? We're still mentoring them, but we're not necessarily having the conversations about asking them and what their goals are because that would be, I mean, their goal, a 5-year-old's goal for the next 5 minutes really will be to play with their Legos, right? So that's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is when they're capable of creating their own goals and things they want to accomplish, then let's have that conversation and let's include that, okay? And that's one of the ways that we can mentor our kids. The other way, and something else that mentorship does, is that mentoring also takes into account our end goal. I talk about this a lot as well. What is your end goal for your kids when they are adults? Let's say 25 years old. This is like if they're going to college, they're done with that. If they're not, they're living their best life. They've been through some things, they've kind of figured some things out. Now they're out in the world. 25 years old. Who do you want your kids to be at that age? That's a really big question. This is something I talk about with every single parent that I talk to on calls. Because if we don't start at the end, we have no idea that the what we're doing today and the next day and the next day and the next year and the next year is going to get us to that goal. Most of us have never even thought about it before. I talk about this a lot, you guys. The end goal is very important. So we have to start with the end. That's a thing that I do different than anybody else because no one is asking that question. I realized when I was teaching school, no one was, we're just getting our kids to this arbitrary goal. And it doesn't take into account what we really want for our kids, not in necessarily what they're doing for a career, but who we want them to be. I mean, when we homeschool, we have the opportunity to be intentional about that. So I want you to think about what's the end goal, be very clear on it. That's the first thing in being a good mentor. Be very clear on it. And if you need help with that, I am your girl. That is what I do. That's part of our Inspiring Lifelong Learning Academy is we start with the end. We clarify that and then we work backwards from there to make sure that every day is aligned to get us to that end goal. Okay? So that's mentoring. It's thinking way down the road and then coming back to today and going, what's the next step right now? A lot of parents, that's very confusing because we don't know how to take the next step. We don't know what the end goal is, and we don't know what the next step is to get there. That's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about to make sure that you end up with those lifelong learners and leaders. Okay. So, what I want you to do first is to take an account of that end goal and then take account of your kids' goals. So, what are they interested in? What are they doing? What do they talk about? And then, how do we combine those two into help them achieving those things so that they can own their own education? It's really about progressing to autonomy and really them saying, it's mine. I get it. It's mine. I want it. And that's where we start the lifelong learning ownership. But mentoring them to that place is way different than just teaching them math and science skills and language arts skills. Do you see that? We're on a whole nother level. And that's why I make sure to teach you how to be a good mentor. So I want you to first start off with the end goal and then also start off with where your kids want to go, even if it's just the next week, right? But have them start thinking about this. They need to think about their end goal too. I mean, most kids never think about that. They just say, give me the what I need to do now. What do I need to do next? What kind of math do I need to do today? How many pages in my English book do I need to do today? And I mean, kids are short term thinkers. We all know that. Even in their teenage years, pretty short term thinkers. They might have some long term goals. I know my son does long term goals, but it's still very like what's happening in the next 10 minutes, the next 30 minutes, the next hour. It's not a lot of thinking about what's even happening at the end of the day. Sometimes it is, but not always. So we got to make sure that we keep this in front of our minds so we know where we're going, right? So clarifying your end goal and then asking your child what his or her goals are and then helping them get there. This is mentorship. Do you see the difference? Do you see how much more powerful that is when we can teach our kids to own their own education and help themselves design the life that they want to live? Now we are really getting into some people that can make a difference in this world, that can really be independent in their life, that can be successful at whatever they want to do, whatever they choose to do. They can dig into their passions and they know they have the confidence to achieve it. That's what I hear from you every single day about what you guys want for your kids. That's what I want for my child. And mentorship is the way to get there. So let's ask this question again. Are you a mentor to your kids or are you just teaching? And the results are that teaching will get you the transcript, it will get you somebody who is a box checker, somebody who will be a learner, but maybe not a lifelong learner. They'll do the things they need to do to get the job done but they won't be able to get to that lifelong learner stage and that leader stage unless you also include the mentoring, that higher level ownership thinking, and move them towards the long term end goal. Does that make sense? I hope that's making sense for you. I have to tell you this story about this. In our Inspiring Lifelong Learning Academy, one of our members, Ashley, she's so amazing. And I brag about her all the time. She is incredible. And she's working with her son right now. He's got a goal for himself that he wants to start high school, like in a charter, like in a school setting. And he's working homeschooling right now towards that. And he's got to have a lot of different habits and he's got to have a different mindset. And so she said, well, right now we're in a mentoring phase. I love this. I love this. We're in a mentoring phase because he has a goal. And she's saying, I want to help get him to that goal, to his goal that will help also get us to our end goal that we want for him and that we want him to be. The person we want him to be at the end. And so we're working together to help him own his own education and her be a great mentor to him to create the new habits, to create the new mindset, to really get what his goal is. I am so excited about that. I love to hear parents doing that, saying, we're not just going through the motions right now. We want to be a good mentor because that's necessary for allowing him to achieve his goals. Do you see that difference? It's a gigantic gap between just teaching. Trust me, I did that in public school, and now I'm mentoring my son. We're mentoring him. I'm giving him the space and the guidance to achieve his goals, which will ultimately also align and lead to the person that my husband and I are trying to develop. And it's already happening. We have mentor conversations almost every single day. We have lots of strategies that we put into place to help mentor him through this process so he can learn all of the things he needs to learn and get his goals. This is such a huge difference, and it is the difference maker between lifetime results in homeschooling and just getting them through. I know if you're listening to this, if you're watching this right now, you are the person that says, I want lifetime results for my kids. I don't want to just get them a transcript and shove them out the house. I want lifetime results. And I'm so proud of you for that because that takes a really, really intentional, special person and parent to be able to do that. If you need help with any of this, if you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't even know what my end goal is. How do we put these strategies into place? What are the other strategies? Let's schedule a call with me and just figure those things out. Let's figure out where you are right now, where you want to go, and the next steps to get there. Because it's important that we talk about that end goal, and I'll help you clarify that. And then we'll talk about where you are now and what's happening, what needs to happen in between. Okay. That's my favorite part. I love talking with parents. Seriously, it is my favorite part. So make sure that you schedule a call with me. It's a free call. Just go down whatever in the show notes, wherever you're watching, listening to this, you'll find the link there. And I know that we are going to be able to get you on that path to being intentional, to being a good mentor for your kid and all your kids so that they can become lifelong learners and leaders that they were meant to be. So exciting. I'll talk to you guys next week. And I know that we are going to have a great path together. Bye bye.